since there was a lot in there, I'm going to address the diversity part first. The real key on this, I think, is traditionally, at least as I look at it, again, I'm an engineer, I'm not a politician, I'm not a sociologist, I don't have a lot of background in the social justice issues. Uh, I see it as a product of sort of structures, of incentives. That's how I sort of try to puzzle out human behavior in general. And technology, for the longest time, has been sort of a rich man's sport, which demographically was going to mean it's going to be smaller communities of primarily white people. And STEM, sort of the body of STEM experts, had been primarily male. Now, this is beginning to change very slowly, but it is beginning to change, and we do need to focus more on it. One of the things actually encourages me on this is the fact that I'm seeing more and more people who come from underprivileged backgrounds, who come from minority backgrounds, who didn't enjoy the same advantages that, for example, I myself did. And yet they are much more capable relative to me than I was at that age. And maybe this is just advances in technology, and sort of each generation gets better than the last. But I like to think that it's something more. I like to think that when you have people who have been exposed to different challenges, different environments, they bring different perspectives, new perspectives that may actually, in the ultimate calculus, produce a greater capability. And when there's more of us with more perspectives, I think we're going to have basically better outcomes overall as a community. Now, moving on to the issue of the blinking red terrorism is worse than it's ever been. It's simply false. We know it's false, at least in the West, right? There was a recent sort of media hysteria over the attacks in Brussels, which were a monstrous crime. But when you look at the actual metrics of lives lost due to terrorism over the case of the last 40, 50 years in Western Europe, they lost more lives more regularly in the 60s and 70s and 80s with issues and groups like the IRA and the ETA than they have ever lost against adversaries like Al-Qaeda or ISIS. And the sophistication, the scope, the scale of the networks, the persistence of them, their capability, their ability to influence policy and shape our response was much higher in previous eras as well. It's too easy for us to forget that Margaret Thatcher, the former prime minister in the UK, had the IRA able to actually place explosives in her hotel and nearly kill her at a summit. Yes, it is outrageous, it's appalling, and we should condemn the people who are engaged in the kind of murderous criminality that's claiming lives at subway stations and airports. But at the same time, we should not delude ourselves into thinking we face a period of objectively greater threat now than when our actual structures of government, with all of their security services at their hardest targets, were nearly getting blown up on a regular basis.